of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) at the global level. During the meeting, the forum receives and considers voluntary national review reports from selected countries. Nigeria is one of the 47 countries selected to make presentation this year. On the program today, we will focus on the 2020 session of the forum after the news on innovative implementations of the SDGs from around the world with Adesua Osuyi. To stay with us.
Pollution, largely from burning fossil fuels, kills up to 7 million people annually, with low and middle-income countries bearing the highest burden. To this end, a future powered by wind, solar and other sustainable energy sources remains on course, especially as costs of producing wind and solar energy have dropped in recent years. Taking advantage, Australia's biggest city, Sydney, home to over 250,000 people, now runs on 100% wind and solar power, saving emissions equivalent to around 6,000 homes. Wind will provide 75% of the city's electricity, while 3 solar farms will provide the remaining 25%. While Sydney was Australia's first district to go carbon neutral in 2007, the shift to renewable energy will save the city 500,000 Australian dollars annually, as well as 20,000 tons of carbon dioxide. The United Nations say Latin America and the Caribbean account for 10% of global emission, but also have the biggest decarbonization potential in the world. Striving for lead in clean mobility across all developing countries, Chile now has the largest electronic bus fleet in Latin America and second only to China, with quality of electric buses in the world. While the e-buses cost 70% less than diesel buses and are cheaper to run, experts say using each bus is equivalent to removing 33 carbon-emitting cars from the road. Other Latin American countries have begun following Chile's lead. Colombia has ordered 125 electric cars for its city of Cali, the first of its kind in the whole country, while Panama is now experimenting with electric buses by allowing commuters to ride them for free for 6 months. Recent studies reveal that if all carbon-emitting vehicles in 22 Latin American cities are replaced with electric vehicles, the region will save $64 billion on fuel, emit 300 million less tons of carbon dioxide, and save over 36,000 people from premature death. Electric buses are cleaner than fossil fuel buses, helping to cut air pollution while combating climate change. Sweden's housing provider, Vetahem, has kicked off plans to build self-sufficient hydrogen-powered housing that will be 100% off any power grid using fuel cell technology. The novel project will feature various forms of solar panels on the roofs, glazing and facades, generating electricity through photovoltaic cells, which will be stored in batteries for availability on demand, while stored hydrogen will be converted into heat and electricity making renewable energy possible throughout the winter, as solar power is considerably more limited during winter months. The project will become the world's first hydrogen-powered housing project, with apartment buildings completely off the grid. Hydrogen-powered housing and fuel cell technology already exist in Japan, but this project will adopt it for the Netherlands.
Nigeria's 2020 Voluntary National Review (VNR) on Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) focuses on the key issues of poverty (SDG 1) and an inclusive economy (SDG 8), health and well-being (SDG 3), education (SDG 4), gender equality (SDG 5), and the enabling environment of peace and security (SDG 16) and partnership (SDG 17. This focus is based on Nigeria's current development priorities and the development objectives of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. The VNR is being developed while facing huge challenges from the COVID-19 pandemic, testing Nigeria's public health system, and the collapse in the oil prices for an economy still getting 86% of public revenue from oil and gas. This report also gives us a vivid picture of the presentation of the 2020 VNR report at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum held online for the first time.
This year, the meeting of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, convened under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council, was held between Tuesday 7th July and Thursday 16th July 2020. The theme is Accelerated Action and Transformative Pathways, realizing the decade of action and delivery for sustainable development. The event was held virtually because of the attendant effect of COVID-19 pandemic.
Last September, the General Assembly proclaimed the Decade of Action for the Sustainable Development Goals. That was in response to a deeply concerning reality. The world was not on track to deliver the goals by 2030. Today, as the High-Level Political Forum meets to review progress on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, our world is in turmoil. We were already facing many challenges: unacceptably high levels of poverty, a rapidly worsening climate emergency, persistent gender inequality, massive gaps in financing. But today we face another massive global challenge, COVID-19, and the gravity of the crisis should not be lost on anyone. Close to 13 million people have been infected by the virus. Over 560,000 have died. Working hours, equivalent to some 400 million jobs, were lost in the second quarter of 2020. And we are experiencing the sharpest decline in per capita income since 1870. Between 7 and 100 million people could be pushed into extreme poverty. And some 265 million could face acute food insecurity by year's end, double the number at risk before the crisis. And the impact of this pandemic is falling disproportionately on the most vulnerable. At a time when we desperately need to leap ahead, COVID-19 could set us back years and even decades, leaving countries with massive fiscal and growth challenges. The crisis is taking us further away from the SDGs. I commend the 47 countries that are presenting voluntary national reviews this year, despite the difficult circumstances. Their reports confirm that our challenges have become greater and more pressing as COVID-19 has exacerbated the world's fragilities. Now we must rise to meet the moment.
Nigeria is one of the 47 VNR reporting countries this year. The list also includes 26 first-time presenters, 20 second-time presenters, and 1 third-time presenter. The reviews of progress at the national and subnational levels are inclusive, country-led and country-driven. Nigeria was also among the 44 countries of the United Nations that presented its Voluntary National Review (VNR) in 2017 on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs at the High-Level Political Forum. President Muhammadu Buhari, through his Senior Special Assistant on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Orelope Adefulure, presented Nigeria's second Voluntary National Review on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals at the second panel session of the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Monday, 13th July.
Nigeria is delighted to present the second Voluntary National Review on Sustainable Development after its first submission in 2017. This review comes amid the global pandemic that threatened to derail the progress of achieving SDGs in our dear country that we are all committed to in 2015. That makes the review all more important in moving forward. Nigerian 2020 Voluntary National Review on Sustainable Development Goals focuses on key issues of poverty, inclusive economy, health and well-being, gender equality, enabling environment, peace and security, and partnership for the goals. This prioritization was based on national development priorities as embedded in Nigeria ARGP 2017 to 2020, and the three cardinal objectives of President Muhammadu Buhari administration, which is economy, security, and fight against corruption. This voluntary national report was carefully framed to establish these conceptual links. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, to ensure genuine ownership and broad-based participation in the implementation of SDGs in Nigeria, this year voluntary national review was conducted through a whole of society approach involving extensive research and wide consultations with all key segments of the society. These include the civil society organization, the scientific community, organized private sector, development partner, people with disability, women, youths, and older persons were all embedded in this process. However, following the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, these consultations were largely conducted virtually. Let me highlight some of the key findings of this review. Nigeria's informal economy is one of the largest in the continent, estimated at 53% of the labor force, and accounting for 65% of gross domestic product, GDP. It is estimated that 75% of new jobs are informal. However, youth have a combined unemployment and underemployment rate of 55%, or 24.5 million. This is youth bulk that need to be building the required skill to move into secure and less precarious form of employment. Ensuring youth are well educated and able to transition to productive employment through digital economy can help reduce poverty and help diversify the economy away from oil and gas. The financial sector can also play an important role in supporting the country's effort to leverage greater private sector-led growth by providing access to finance, particularly for micro, small, and medium enterprises. In addition to the above, Nigerian government can dramatically shift to digitization and strengthening its transition to e-government to facilitate the social protection to the poor and vulnerable population. While Nigeria has some poor health outcomes, such as high rate of maternal mortality, there has been improvement in under 5 mortality rates, from 157 to 132 per 1,000 live births. Now with COVID-19, that is challenging the public health sector, there must be more investment in public health to ensure that most vulnerable are reached through universal access to basic services. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good strides have been made in the domestication process of SDG in Nigeria. Firstly, there is an ongoing realignment of the national statistical system with requirements and indicators of the SDGs. Secondly, we have developed our homegrown Integrated Sustainable Development Goal (ISDG) model, which is an analytical framework for assessing how policy making can better address the indivisible nature of SDGs. Thirdly, Nigeria's 2020 Voluntary National Report has drawn evidence from 46 evaluations. An ongoing independent evaluation of SDG 3 and 4 will provide guidance on key steps to strengthen implementation. This attempt to systematically use evaluation findings is an innovation in the context of the Voluntary National Review. Nigeria will reinforce evidence-based planning and accountability mechanisms at the national and sub-national level to fast-track the achievement of SDGs during this decade of action. Nigeria's next medium-term national development plan for 2021 to 2025 and Nigeria Agenda 2050 will be pivotal in advancing the achievement of SDG in Nigeria. Excellency, distinguished delegates, On behalf of the government and people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I present Nigeria's second voluntary national review report to the 2020 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. I thank you for your attention.
Among the 47 VNR reporting countries for year 2020 are 26 first-time presenters and 1 third-time presenter. It could be recalled that as part of its follow-up and review mechanisms, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development encourages member states to conduct regular and inclusive reviews of progress at the national and subnational levels, which are country-led and country-driven. The national reviews are expected to serve as a basis for the regular reviews by the High-Level Political Forum, meeting under the auspices of ECOSOC every year in July. As stipulated in paragraph 84 of the 2030 Agenda, regular reviews by the HLPF are to be voluntary, state-led, undertaken by both developed and developing countries, and shall provide a platform for partnerships, including through the participation of major groups and other relevant stakeholders. The VNR countries are expected to submit comprehensive written reports that will be made available in the VNR database. In addition, each VNR country will also provide main messages summarizing their key findings. These main messages are also posted in the VNR database. But what was the process for the preparation of the second National Voluntary Report by Nigeria?
This high-level political forum is a platform that aspire to hold member countries to account in the overall implementation of the 2030 Agenda. So in doing that, the concept of voluntary national review, where countries are encouraged to report voluntarily on an annual basis their progress and challenges in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in their country. To ensure that we achieve an evidence-based voluntary national review, for Nigeria, we started early November last year with the establishment of a voluntary national review planning committee, and that committee midwifed the what we now have as the core working group on Nigeria's 2020 voluntary national review. And this group is it's quite broad. Representatives from the federal ministries, department and agencies, representatives of the development partner groups, organized private sector, civil society organizations, are all represented in the co-working group to provide the strategic guidance and direction for the entire voluntary national review process.
Preparing voluntary national reviews report in a COVID-19 era presented a different kind of challenge, especially with the demand for inclusivity in the consultation. This was one of the challenges the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs had to surmount. The voluntary national reviews aim to facilitate the sharing of experiences, including successes, challenges, and lessons learned, with a view to accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. The VNRs also seek to strengthen policies and institutions of government and to mobilize multi-stakeholder support and partnership for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals.
To strengthen the means of implementation as well as revitalize partnership for the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs has inaugurated its Servicom unit and also launched a service charter in the office. The unit is expected to increase transparency and efficiency while also helping to further bridge the gap between MDAs, government and citizens, thereby accelerating progress of economy-focused agendas.
In the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, Partnerships and collaborations for the goals is considered imperative to effective coordination, representation, and actualization of set goals. To this end, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs has inaugurated a Servicom unit in the office in a bid to accelerate the achievement of the SDGs in Nigeria. The office, whose mandate includes horizontal and vertical intergovernmental coordination, multi-stakeholder partnerships, resources mobilization, advocacy, and strategic communications for the SDGs in Nigeria, synergizes with multilateral structures and institutions to accelerate the achievement of the goals. The OSAP SDGs Servicom unit will also involve other activities like general enlightenment and sensitization of members of staff on Servicom duties, as well as the establishment and launch of the office's service charter, which aims to measure and improve organizational performance and improve relations and satisfaction of citizens with services of the organization. Speaking at the inauguration, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Orelokpe Adefulure, said she is convinced and confident that the unit will contribute to and accelerate progress towards the achievement of the SDGs in Nigeria by 2030, while reinforcing her commitment to achieving the SDGs in Nigeria. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs highlighted recent efforts by the office to guarantee effective implementation goals in the country.
Servicom aims to promote effective and efficient service delivery in ministry, department, and agency of government to ensure customer satisfaction has been told and to manage the performance expectation gap between government and citizen, as well as other members of the public on issue of service delivery. Furthermore, the federal government of Nigeria has in 2017 issued Executive Order 001 on the promotion of transparency, efficiency in the business environment as part of its efforts to promote enabling environment for excellent service delivery across the ministry, department, and agencies of government.
Secretary of Programs in the office, Danjuma Dauda, in his remarks, said he has no doubt that the partnership will produce as well as fast-track desired results.
This office, whose mandate includes horizontal and vertical intergovernmental coordination, multi-stakeholder partnership, resource mobilization, advocacy, and strategic communications for the SDGs in Nigeria, synergizes with multilateral structures and institutions to accelerate the achievement of SDGs. The OSAP SDGs Servicom unit being inaugurated today will undoubtedly add value and fast-track a seamless implementation of the 2030 agenda.
National Coordinator of Servicom, Nneka Akajemili, who took her time to explain the place of the service in the implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria, also reeled out what the service aspires to achieve with the partnership.
So this committee that will be set up today will be bringing to the table of Her Excellency and the top management regular reports and feedback from the service consumers, from the people whom we serve from SDG, and telling us if indeed their lives are truly being touched by the quality of services that they receive.
The inauguration of the OSAP SDGs Servicom unit is to reinforce the office's commitment to work closely together in support of qualitative service delivery as the country continues to work towards successful implementation of the SDGs as the global community begins the countdown on the decade of action. Servicom, an initiative of the federal government of Nigeria, was conceived to promote effective and efficient service delivery in ministries, departments, and agencies so as to ensure customer and consumer satisfaction, as well as to manage the performance expectation gap between government and its citizens and other members of the public on issues bordering on service delivery. The initiative gives the public the right to demand quality services as contained in Ministry, Department and Agencies Service Charter, hence the significance of Servicom Unit in the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, to fast-track the actualization of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Remember, you can always watch this program and other episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channels on youtube.com/Fresh News TV and youtube.com/Agenda 2030 TV. You can also watch the program live on Facebook. Just log on to www.facebook.com/Fresh News NG and www.facebook.com/Agenda 2030 TV. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Agenda 2030 TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember to drop your comments and share with your contacts. Do use the hashtag Agenda 2030 and hashtag Agenda 2030 TV. And that's how much we can take on the program this week. Do keep a date with us next week for another refreshing episode. I am Tony Nkamiang John. Thank you for staying with us.
COVID-19. To go back, make it be like before. But these times are hard. Stay safe and let's endure. So social distance, oh my brother. Wear your face mask, oh my sister. Wash your hand well, my brother. We want to be free. We want to be free. We want to be free. Your loved ones and you want to go to work, but we have to stay at home and stop with this infection. We will overcome these times and get rid of this disease. We will overcome these times and live in unity. We want to be free. We want to be free. We want to be free.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Do you know that retention enema, that is coffee enema with probiotics, not only balances the good and bad bacteria population in the body, but removes toxins from the liver, thereby enabling the organ to perform its key functions and helps the body's immune system to be upregulated? I guess you wouldn't want to miss out on this. Hello and welcome to Health Options with me, Rabi Abdullah. Health Options is the program that not only tracks government policies on health, but helps you to make informed